Now, it's bound to happen that some of the celebrities that make it their job or their issue in life would chime in on the current state of affairs, at least in America. And Spike Lee is one of those fellows. He's done a number of movies and told a number of stories about racism in America, the story of Malcolm X, and other stories. So now he's saying some rather strange things that aren't false, but I don't think he understands what that means. This is during an interview with Going Back to Normal on SXM, Sirius. So it's just odd to hear this stuff as if people without any understanding of the systems can't explain that. So he says things like, the foundation of the United States of America is immoral from the get-go. And you're like, well, what do you mean by immoral? What foundation of what aspect of the Constitution or the Bill of Rights or the founders, like what was immoral? I'm sure there were not perfect people, so there's bound to be something immoral. Just what do you mean? The foundation has been shaky from day one. The country was based upon the stealing of the land from Native people and genocide against Native people, coupled with slavery. That was how this country was built. You're like, yeah, that's true. I mean, the people came to America, took over the land, brought their culture with them, which involves slaves and what have you. That's true. Guess what, Lee? Every country has been doing that. We've been doing that since the foundation of government, from ancient Greco-Roman tribes, all the way up to America. That's how it goes. All the lines have been drawn on most maps of who owns what and why. And we've been giving reparations to Native Americans ever since. Canada does it all the time. France, Italy, Germany. Look at Africa. All sorts of colonies from the European countries. Yeah, they are founded in those continents. That's what's been going on. So it's nothing new. America's nothing really special in that regard. If anything, America is the shining beacon of what happens when you do take over a certain landmass and grow and expand and prosper. It is one of those great places. So what exactly is he talking about that makes America immoral, aside from it being a country like everyone else? How many of us in grade school were taught that George Washington cut down a cherry tree? When they asked, I cannot lie, I chopped down the cherry tree, da, da, da. How many of us were not taught that George Washington owned 123 slaves? And many presidents after that. This whole narrative, a large part of it, is a lie. Okay, so sure, there's lots of information we don't get. It doesn't make it a lie. There's just a lot of unreleased information because, I don't know, you're a kid in high school or grade school and they can't bombard you with all this information. And we all know that slavery was still a thing back then. Why are we still talking about slavery today? That's what I'm curious about. This is a problem or an issue or a societal thing that happened hundreds of years ago by long dead people. It has been abolished. It is no longer a thing. People of every denomination have come to America for a better life, and they get it. I don't see what the problem is. So I want to know where he's coming from. Why is slavery still an issue today? What's the big deal? He then discusses his film, The Five Bloods, saying, this is why The Five Bloods we have Chadwick Boseman's character telling how Bloods, that the first person to die in the United States of America was a black man. Sure it wasn't a Native American? You know, when they took the land from the Native Americans? I mean, you yourself said that you took it away from Native people. So is that after the founding of the country? I don't know. We're splitting hairs here. And ultimately, who gives a crap? People died in the founding of countries. People died after the founding of countries. This is true. What is your point? And this is during the Revolutionary War. So this is obviously after the founding of the country. We've been patriotic for this country from day one. Yes, Americans are very patriotic, no matter your skin tone or denomination. This is true. We've been here for 401 years and still haven't got, a full citizenship. Yes, you have. People who come to the country who are immigrants nowadays We want to get citizenship status. It takes a bit of time, I believe, but you can get it. You can become a full citizen. And if you're born in America, you are a native automatic citizen. So that's not an argument. If that was the case, we wouldn't be getting shot down in the streets left and right. Okay, so now I think he's referring to the state of affairs nowadays, that people of a certain background, of a certain culture, who are raised a certain way, who happen to be of his denomination, he's saying, well, we're not really a full citizen because we don't get the same lifestyle or the same opportunities as the other people do. Now, I can summarize this all under one thing, and that's upbringing or education. Who are educating you? What are you learning and how? Which schools are you going to? What teachers are you getting? What lessons are you learning? And we look to the education system, we look to the family unit, we look to who is raising these people in these communities, which communities. So I can talk about the culture of whites and blacks and Hispanics and all the wonderful details that make things happen the way they do. And we talk about the silver bullet of education, what would cause this to benefit. And I don't know the answers. It's a very complicated topic. But I do know that America has this one thing, and it's called the voucher program, or the student voucher program, or the school voucher policy. And the United States has a big one about that. It works on the federal level, I believe, and I don't know all the details. And there's arguments for and against it, and some of it's good, some of it's bad. Nothing's perfect in the government, that's true, but it's a beautiful thing when you think about it. The federal government will say, hey, I'm not going to control the state level. I'm not going to control the city or municipal level. That's outside of the federal government's jurisdiction. But what we can do is give you a voucher or some money saying, hey, parent, I don't know what's going on in your state. I don't know what's going on in your city, but you have now some money to put your child into whatever program or school you like, giving you the freedom to go wherever you want, essentially. Now, I'm sure there's restrictions. I'm sure they don't give you tons and tons of money to do that. There's all sorts of different ways that's done. And one of the problems here is listed here. In Milwaukee in 2013, the use of the voucher increased the probability that a student would graduate from high school, go to college, and stay in college. So, yeah, using the voucher in this state did give a greater probability that your student or your kid would eventually get a degree or diploma in post-secondary education. In 2015, the National Bureau of Economic Research found that participation in Louisiana's voucher program substantially reduces academic achievement, although that the result may be reflective of the poor quality of private schools in the program. So this is a form of competition forcing the public school system and the private school system to compete, to get better, which to me sounds like a great thing. In theory, I don't know the details, but it sounds like a good opportunity if you're an American, that if you do take advantage of this program, parents would be better off, their kids would be better off in probability. I don't know the details, but that seems to be one of the major components of why kids, whether they're black kids or white kids, what have you, in America, there could be immigrants, don't have the right citizenship or freedoms and aspirations as natively born ones, perhaps. Here's the thing, and though it might be all over the place, we cannot go wherever this day comes, we go back to supposed normalcy. What they call normal was abnormal because Eric Gardner and a whole bunch of people happened before, not before Christ, but before Corona. So he's saying the government was messed up. The society we have for each of our cities and states in America didn't work. And a lot of people can agree to that. Yeah, it's not the way it should be. There's lots of problems. And if this is just a rallying cry to just tear down a little bit and fix some what's there, great. A lot of people would agree with that. I think a lot of libertarians, essentially, people who see that government is too big on every level, would love to see it decreased and fixed. And he says we have to change everything from top to bottom, this gap that was exposed, not to the have-nots, but to the haves. I'm not sure what that means. Has to be shrunk across the board. Healthcare, economics, education. I mean, we cannot go back to normal because normal is effed up. So this is strange. And just listen to the things he listed. Healthcare, economics, education. Now, these are three very different topics. Economics is more of a philosophy or theory. Education are actual programs. There's public education and private. The voucher program, as I just talked about. Healthcare is all over the place. In America, mostly private. You have various kinds for public. Not an actual one-size-fits-all approach, although they tried that with Obamacare. So these are very complicated things. And to tear them down and start again is like, okay, fine. But economics? What aspect of what economic theory do you want to tear down? If you're talking about corporatism, where the government gets involved, that's a very big story to tell, a very big argument to have. And I'm sure loads of libertarians or people who want to see the size of government shrunk would love to take this all apart. So if this is a rallying cry for smaller government, fantastic. I mean, people are going to love this practice if they're going to start cutting and reducing spending on the federal level, on the municipal level, especially on the state level. Great. I think everyone would be all for that. But I'm quite sure that's the opposite of what he's saying. I'm quite sure he's like, no. We want more money. We want more reparations. We need to give more money to these failed programs. Now, if he's not saying that, I apologize, and I have no idea what I'm talking about. But usually this is a cry for more funding, and that's essentially what it comes down to. We want more money. As essentially what we heard about the all cops are bad sort of mantra, that you should take away money from the police force and give them to the communities, directly to the parents who do not have these great voucher programs or great education for their children, which they can then use on whatever. Of course, Spike Lee is called Christopher Columbus a terrorist. He has a bunch of other strange takes. It's funny to hear this sort of talk from the people who have been saying the same thing in good and bad times or less stressful times. So it's inherently a racist thing to say in general, calling United States immoral because of racism or slavery. That's neither here nor there. That's the history of every country. There is always going to be some conqueror who came by and took the land away from people who were less powerful. That's how civilizations are forged, unfortunately. Now, if there are examples of civilizations that were bought or traded for or founded independently of someone else's land, like was it the seasteadings? Oceania, I think, is a country which some rich individuals founded. There's all sorts of other ways of doing that. But there's really no examples of that doing well or mainstream examples. It's all been based on conquest, really. So that argument doesn't hold up. And really, this whole issue has to come down to culture, society, and education. So is it good to be talking about these things? Of course it is. Is it to start saying Americans are immoral simply for being American? Of course not. That's ridiculous. These are past problems that are no longer today. But hopefully this will open up conversation. And we can talk about things on a municipal level and a state and federal level on how to fix things, as opposed to just throwing money at the problem or calling people fascists, bigots, or racists. Hopefully that won't be the case. But I doubt that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to get even more ramped up with the rhetoric and the name calling, sadly. Anyway, thanks for listening, folks. Have yourself a good morning.